Hello, my dear adventurers. It's here we meet again, settling in for another evening of shared mysteries and whispered theories. Tonight, we're diving into something that's haunted Stranger Things fans since the very first episode aired back in 2016. A moment so subtle that most people missed it entirely, yet so significant that it might change everything we thought we knew about the show's two most tortured characters. We're talking about Eleven and Will Byers, and a connection between them that's been hiding in plain sight for 8 years. Now I know what you're thinking. Eleven and Will, they barely even interact in the first few seasons. Will's trapped in the Upside Down for most of season 1, and when they finally do meet properly, they're awkward step siblings trying to figure out how to live together in California. But that's exactly what makes this theory so fascinating, because despite spending so little time together on screen, these two characters are connected in ways the show has never fully explained, and some fans believe the connection goes all the way back to November 6th, 1983, the night everything began. Tonight, we're going to explore one of the most controversial theories in the Stranger Things fandom. The idea that Eleven didn't just accidentally encounter Will that first night. The theory that she might have actually betrayed him, whether knowingly or unknowingly, setting into motion a chain of events that would haunt both of them for years. We'll examine the evidence, discuss what the Duffer Brothers have hinted at, and explore what this could mean for the final season. So grab your blanket, settle into your fort, and let's begin. Because this story starts long before Will disappeared into the woods that November night. It starts with a girl in a laboratory, trapped in a sensory deprivation tank, reaching out into the darkness and finding something she shouldn't have. Let's travel back to Season 1, Episode 2, titled The Weirdo on Maple Street. It's been 2 days since Will Byers vanished. Mike Wheeler has brought Eleven into his home, given her a disguise, and is now showing her around. They're in his bedroom, and Mike is explaining who his friends are. He points to a photograph on his bedside table, a picture of the four boys, Mike, Dustin, Lucas, and Will, all grinning at the camera during happier times. And then it happens. Eleven looks at the photo, and her face changes. For just a moment, maybe 3 seconds on screen, she stares at Will's face with an expression that's impossible to read. Recognition, guilt, fear. Millie Bobby Brown's performance in that moment is deliberately ambiguous. But what's undeniable is that Eleven knows who Will is. She recognizes him. And remember, at this point in the story, Eleven has been locked inside Hawkins' laboratory her entire life. She escaped only 2 days ago, the same night Will disappeared. She's never been to Hawkins Middle School. She's never met Will's family. She couldn't have seen him around town, so how does she recognize him? Mike notices her reaction immediately. "You know something about Will?" he asks, his voice urgent, desperate. But Eleven can't explain. She doesn't have the words, or maybe she doesn't want to say. She just keeps staring at that photograph, and the scene moves on. It's easy to miss if you're not paying attention. The Duffer Brothers don't draw attention to it with dramatic music or close-ups. It's just there, a quiet moment that plants a seed of mystery. But that seed has grown over the years, because as we learned more about Eleven's powers, about what she can do and how she does it, that moment of recognition became increasingly significant. Eleven can enter a psychic void, a dark mental space where she can locate and observe people across vast distances, even across dimensions. We've seen her do this repeatedly throughout the series. She found Will in the Upside Down. She spied on Russian agents. She located Max's consciousness when Max was dying. Distance doesn't matter. Dimensions don't matter. If 11 focuses on someone, she can find them. Which raises the obvious question. Did 11 encounter Will before the night he disappeared? Did she see him in the void during one of Dr. Brenner's experiments? And if so, what happened during that encounter? The show has never explicitly answered these questions. But the more you examine the evidence, the more unsettling the implications become. Because if 11 did encounter Will in the void before his disappearance, it means their connection is older and stranger than anything the show has revealed. And it might mean that what happened to Will wasn't random at all. To understand how 11 might have encountered Will before his disappearance, we need to talk about the void itself. This is the psychic space 11 enters when she uses her remote viewing abilities, and it's one of the most fascinating and least explained elements of the show's mythology. We first see the void in flashbacks during Season 1 when Dr. Brenner forces young 11 into a sensory deprivation tank. The tank is filled with salt water, warm as body temperature, and completely dark. 11 floats in total silence, deprived of all sensory input from the outside world. And in that darkness, her mind opens up. She can project her consciousness outward, traveling to other locations, observing people and events happening far away. The void itself appears as an infinite black expanse, like being submerged in the deepest ocean at midnight. 11 walks through this darkness in bare feet, and wherever she steps, a thin film of water ripples out. The only things visible in this space are the people 11 is searching for. They appear as if lit by a single spotlight, standing or sitting in the void, completely unaware they're being observed. 11 can watch them, listen to their conversations, even make her presence known by touching them. When she does, they typically react with shock or fear, sensing that something supernatural has happened. But here's what's crucial to understand about the void. It's not just a tool for spying on people. The void connects to other dimensions. We know this because 11 encountered the Demogorgon there before the gate to the Upside Down ever opened. She was floating in the sensory deprivation tank at Hawkins' lab, searching for a Russian agent, when she suddenly found herself face to face with a creature from another world. The creature was just standing there in the darkness, and 11, curious and terrified, reached out and touched it. That touch changed everything. It created a bridge between dimensions, opening the first gate to the Upside Down. The Demogorgon came through into our world, and 11, traumatized and scared, fled the laboratory. This all happened on November 6, 1983, the same night Will disappeared. Now here's where it gets interesting. The void doesn't just connect to the Upside Down. The void might actually be the Upside Down, or at least a liminal space between dimensions. Think about it. The void is dark, empty, and filled with floating particles, just like the Upside Down. When 11 searches for people in the void, she sometimes sees them surrounded by vines and decay, visual cues that they're in the Upside Down, rather than our world. The void might be a psychic representation of the space between realities, a place where the barriers between worlds grow thin. And if the void connects to the upside down, then any 111 encounters in the void is potentially vulnerable to the creatures that live there. When 11 found the Demogorgon in the void, she didn't summon it. It was already there, lurking in that space between dimensions. Which means the void isn't safe. It's a place where monsters dwell. And if 11 encountered Will in the void before his disappearance, she might have inadvertently exposed him to those monsters. This is where the theory begins to take shape. What if 11's encounter with Will in the void somehow marked him? What if her psychic touch, however innocent, created a connection that the Demogorgon could sense? What if she's the reason Will was taken? Let's return to that moment in Mike's bedroom when 11 sees Will's photograph. Now that we understand more about 11's powers and the void, we can interpret that scene differently. Imagine you're 11. You've spent your entire life locked in a laboratory, subjected to cruel experiments. Dr. Brenner forces you into the sensory deprivation tank regularly, making you search for people you've never met. Sometimes you're spying on Russian agents. Sometimes you're tracking down other test subjects who've escaped. Sometimes Brenner gives you a photograph and tells you to find whoever's in the picture. You don't know why. You don't know what happens to the people you find. You just do what Papa tells you, because if you don't, there are consequences. Now imagine that one day, Brenner shows you a photograph of a boy. A young boy with a bowl cut, maybe 11 or 12 years old, smiling at the camera. Brenner tells you to find him. You enter the void and you search. You walk through that endless darkness until suddenly, there he is, the boy from the photograph. He's alone, frightened, hiding in some kind of fort made of wood and blankets. You reach out to touch him, to let him know you're there, but before you can, something else appears in the void. A creature, tall, faceless, covered in glistening skin. It's moving toward the boy, hunting him. You panic and pull yourself out of the void, gasping for breath as you emerge from the tank. But the damage is done. Your psychic touch has created a beacon, a connection between the boy and the darkness. And that very night, the creature comes through. It finds the boy. It takes him. This is speculation, of course. The show has never confirmed that this is what happened. But it would explain so much. It would explain why 11 recognizes Will. It would explain the guilt we see in her eyes when she looks at his photograph. It would explain why she's so determined to find him, why she pushes herself to the point of exhaustion, searching for him in the upside down. Because she knows. She knows what she did, even if it was an accident, even if she was just following Brenner's orders. And it would explain something else too. It would explain why Will survived. One of the biggest mysteries of Season 1 is why the Demogorgon took Will alive. This creature killed Barb within hours of taking her. It killed a scientist at Hawkins' lab almost instantly. It killed multiple deer, leaving their corpses rotting in the woods. The Demogorgon is a predator, and predators kill their prey. They don't capture them and keep them alive for a week. But that's exactly what happened to Will. The Demogorgon dragged him into the Upside Down, and instead of killing him immediately, it kept him alive. It took him to a specific location, the Upside Down version of the library, and wrapped him in organic vines. It kept him there, unconscious, for an entire week. Why? The show has never given us a satisfactory answer. Hopper and Joyce assumed the Demogorgon was keeping Will alive to feed on later, like a spider saving prey in its web. But that doesn't really make sense when you consider that the creature killed every other human it encountered. Why spare Will specifically? The Stranger Things subreddit and various fan communities have been dissecting this theory for years, building on each other's observations and creating increasingly elaborate explanations for the 11 Will connection. Some of these theories are wild, but many of them raise valid points that deserve consideration. One popular theory suggests that the Demogorgon wasn't actually after Will on November 6th. It was after 11. The timeline supports this. 11 escaped from Hawkins' lab the same night Will disappeared, fleeing through the woods in a hospital gown. The Demogorgon, having just entered our dimension through the gate 11 created, would have been drawn to her psychic energy like a moth to a flame. But as it pursued her through the woods, it encountered Will instead. Here's where this theory gets interesting. Some fans believe 11 and Will were in the same area that night, possibly even saw each other briefly. The Demogorgon, unable to distinguish between them because they share similar psychic signatures, grabbed Will thinking it was capturing 11. By the time it realized its mistake, it was too late. Will was already in the Upside Down, and the Demogorgon, following some instinct or order from Vecna, decided to keep him alive rather than admit failure. This theory would explain why Hopper initially thought 11 might be Will when he saw the surveillance footage. It would explain why multiple characters throughout Season 1 confused the two of them, and it would explain 11's guilt. Not because she deliberately betrayed Will, but because she knows the Demogorgon was hunting her. Will was taken by mistake, a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and it's her fault he was there at all. Another theory that's gained traction recently is the Wonder Twins theory, which draws parallels to the DC Comics characters. The original Wonder Twins, Zan and Jaina, are siblings with psychic powers that only work when they're in physical contact with each other. The theory suggests that 11 and Will have a similar dynamic. They're stronger together, their abilities complement each other, and Season 5 will require them to work in tandem to defeat Vecna, combining their powers in a way we haven't seen before. Evidence for this includes the way their abilities manifest. 11's powers are active and external. She moves objects, breaks things, fights monsters. Will's powers, such as they are, seem to be passive and internal. He senses danger, perceives other dimensions, acts as a kind of psychic receiver. 11 broadcasts. Will receives. Together, they could form a complete circuit, a psychic connection strong enough to reach into the Upside Down and fundamentally change its nature. There's also a theory that 11 has been unconsciously protecting Will all along, that their psychic bond, formed during those early encounters in the void, has been keeping him safe even when she didn't realize it. When the Mind Flayer possessed Will in Season 2, it couldn't completely control him because 11's presence in his mind, dormant but still there, was creating resistance. When Vecna tried to kill Max in Season 4, 11 fought back and saved her. Maybe she's been doing the same thing for Will this whole time, just on a subconscious level. One particularly elaborate theory suggests that Will has always had latent psychic abilities, but they were suppressed or never fully developed because he wasn't raised in a laboratory environment like Eleven. The trauma of being taken to the upside down has been slowly awakening those abilities, and by season 5, he'll be able to access them fully. Some fans have even speculated that Will might be designated as a numbered subject, just like 11, that somewhere in Hawkins Lab's files there's a folder labeled 012 or 000 with Will's name on it. Here's another theory that's been gaining traction in the fandom. What if Will wasn't spared by the Demogorgon at all? What if he was being preserved for something else? What if Eleven's psychic connection to him somehow protected him, or marked him as special, or designated him for a different purpose? Think about what we learned in Season 4. Vecna, who is actually Henry Creel, the first test subject from Hawkins' lab, has been controlling the Upside Down since 1979. He shaped the Mind Flayer. He's been orchestrating events, planning his revenge against humanity. Vecna doesn't kill randomly. He chooses his victims carefully, targeting people with specific traumas, specific guilt. Every death serves a purpose in his grand design. What if Vecna sensed Eleven's psychic signature on Will? What if he recognized that Will was connected to another person with powers and decided to spare him because of it? We know from Season 2 that Vecna possessed Will, using him as a spy to gather information about Hawkins and the people trying to stop him. Maybe that was always the plan. Take the boy, keep him alive, use him as a puppet. But there's another possibility, one that's even more disturbing. What if 11 didn't just encounter Will in the void? What if she encountered him multiple times? What if Brenner had been using Will as a test subject, studying him from afar through 11's powers before the gate ever opened? This theory suggests that Will wasn't a random victim. He was a target. Brenner knew about Will, knew about his connection to Joyce, knew something about the boy that made him valuable. And when the gate opened on November 6th, the Demogorgon went straight for Will because that's what it had been directed to do. Whether by Brenner's programming or Vecna's influence, Will was always meant to be taken. The evidence for this is circumstantial but compelling. In Season 2, when Will is going through medical examinations at Hawkins' lab after being rescued, Dr. Owens makes a strange comment. He tells Hopper, "We need to understand what happened to him, what it did to him. Not what it might have done, not what we think happened, but what it did," as if he already knew Will had been changed by his experience, as if the lab had been expecting this outcome. And then there's the fake body. When authorities found what they claimed was Will's corpse in the quarry, it was remarkably detailed. The fake body had Will's birthmark, his dental records, even seemed to match his height and weight. That's not the kind of thing you can throw together in a couple days after a kid goes missing. That's the kind of thing you prepare in advance when you know a child is going to disappear and you need to make people think he's dead. What if Hawkins' lab created that fake body before Will disappeared? What if they knew he was going to be taken because they were planning to take him themselves? What if the Demogorgon just got to him first? Now we need to discuss one of the wildest and most persistent theories in the Stranger Things fandom. The idea that 11 and Will aren't just connected psychically. The theory that they're actually related, maybe not by blood, but by something equally profound. Some fans have even suggested they might be twins, separated at birth, with 11 being kept in the lab while Will was placed with the Byers family. Before you dismiss this as too far-fetched, let's look at the evidence, because there are some genuinely strange parallels between these two characters that the show has never adequately explained. First, there's their physical appearance. Multiple characters in Season 1 mistake 11 for a boy, and specifically, some mistake her for Will. When Hopper first sees 11 in surveillance footage from the night Will disappeared, he wonders if the figure might be Will himself. The kids dress 11 in boy's clothes and a wig, and from a distance, she could pass for any of them. 11 and Will have similar builds, similar facial structures, similar coloring. They could easily be siblings. Second, there's their shared connection to the Upside Down. No other character except 11 and Will has survived extended exposure to that dimension. Barb died within hours. Bob died almost immediately. Even Nancy, Steve, Robin, and Eddie, who spent time there in Season 4, were clearly struggling with the toxic atmosphere. But Will survived a full week in the Upside Down, and not only survived, but remained lucid enough to communicate with his mother through the lights. That's not normal human endurance. That's something else. And after being rescued, Will retained a connection to the Upside Down. He could sense when the Mind Flayer was nearby. He experienced now memories, psychic visions of what was happening in the Upside Down. These abilities are remarkably similar to what 11 experiences. She enters the void, a dark mental space where she can perceive things happening far away or in other dimensions. Will seems to be doing something similar, just involuntarily without training. Third, there's the stuffed animals. In Castle Byers, Will's fort in the woods, there's a stuffed tiger. It's visible in several scenes, sitting among Will's drawings and childhood treasures. And in 11's room at Hawkins' lab, there's an identical stuffed tiger sitting on her bed. Same size, same coloring, same pose. The show never draws attention to this. It's just there, a visual detail that most viewers wouldn't notice. But once you see it, you can't unsee it. Why would these two children who've never met have identical toys? Fourth, there's their parallel journeys in Season 1. Both of them spend most of the season hiding from monsters. 11 hides from Brenner and his agents, finding sanctuary in Mike's blanket fort. Will hides from the Demogorgon in Castle Byers, his own fort. Both of them are found by people who love them, 11 by Mike and his friends, Will by Joyce and Hopper. Both of them are rescued from their respective prisons in the season's climax. The symmetry is striking, and in Season 2, their parallel journeys continue. Both of them experience psychic episodes where they're pulled into a dark space and shown visions they can't fully understand. 11 has flashbacks to the lab, traumatic memories that overwhelm her. Will has now memories of the Mind Flayer and the spreading rot beneath Hawkins. Both of them rely on Mike to pull them back to reality. Mike is the one who grounds them, who reminds them they're safe. Some fans have constructed elaborate theories about how this could work. Maybe 11's mother, Terry Ives, was pregnant with twins. Maybe Brenner took both babies at birth, but decided only one showed enough psychic promise to keep in the lab. Maybe the other baby was placed with a family in Hawkins, so Brenner could keep an eye on how a psychically sensitive child develops in a normal environment. Maybe that baby was Will. Or maybe it's not about blood relation at all. Maybe Will was one of the earlier test subjects at Hawkins' lab before Eleven's time. Maybe he was designated a number, just like all the other children. Maybe something went wrong during his testing, and Brenner decided to place him with a foster family instead. Maybe the Byers family doesn't know their son was ever in the lab. There's even a theory floating around that suggests Joyce Byers might be connected to Terry Ives somehow, that they might have known each other or been part of the same experiments. In the stage play Stranger Things: The First Shadow, which is now canon to the show's timeline, we learn that Joyce attended Hawkins High School in 1959, the same year Henry Creel came to town. We know Terry Ives was involved with MK Ultra experiments at Hawkins' lab in the early 1970s. Is it possible Joyce was too? Is it possible she underwent similar experiments to Terry, and both of their children developed psychic abilities as a result? The show has never confirmed any of this, but the parallels between Eleven and Will are too numerous to be coincidental. The Duffer Brothers are meticulous storytellers. They don't include details like matching stuffed animals or parallel character arcs unless those details mean something. And with Season 5 promising to reveal the true nature of the Upside Down and why Will was taken in the first place, it seems likely we'll finally learn what connects these two characters. Let's dig deeper into the possibility that Will has a history with Hawkins' laboratory, because there are some genuinely disturbing clues scattered throughout the series that point in this direction. In Season 2, Episode 5, when Eleven is searching for her mother Terry Ives, she finds Terry in a catatonic state, stuck in a memory loop from the night Brenner took baby Jane. Eleven enters Terry's mind and experiences the memory with her. We see Terry arriving at Hawkins' lab, demanding her daughter back. We see lab security roughly escorting her out. And in the background of that scene, barely visible, is a car in the parking lot. Fans have paused and enhanced that scene, and some believe the car looks remarkably similar to Joyce Byers' car, the same brown station wagon she drives throughout the series. Now, this could be a coincidence. There are only so many 1970s station wagons, and the production team probably used whatever vehicles they had access to. But what if it's not a coincidence? What if Joyce was at Hawkins' lab that same day? What if she had her own reasons for being there? We know Joyce has always been protective of Will to an almost supernatural degree. Even before he disappeared, she seemed hyper-aware of his vulnerabilities, constantly worrying about him in ways that go beyond normal maternal concern. When he goes missing, she immediately knows he's alive, despite all evidence to the contrary. She can hear him through the lights. She can sense his presence in the house. How does she do this? The show implies it's just a mother's intuition, but what if it's something more? What if Joyce underwent some kind of experiment at Hawkins' lab, something that created a psychic bond with her son? What if that's why she can sense him across dimensions? And what if Brenner knew about this bond, and that's why he targeted Will specifically? There's another piece of evidence that supports this theory: the fake body. We've mentioned it before, but it bears repeating because it's one of the most suspicious elements of the entire show. Someone at Hawkins' lab created a convincing replica of Will's corpse, complete with accurate physical details. But here's what's really disturbing. They did it in less than 48 hours. Will disappeared on the night of November 6th. His fake body was found in the quarry on November 8th. That's not enough time to create a fake body from scratch, especially one detailed enough to fool a medical examiner, which suggests the body was prepared in advance. Someone at Hawkins' lab knew a child matching Will's description was going to disappear, and they had a fake corpse ready to go. The only way that makes sense is if Brenner had been planning Will's disappearance. If he had files on Will, photographs of Will, maybe even tissue samples from Will that allowed them to create a convincing fake. And the only way Brenner would have all of that is if Will had been in the lab before. Think about Will's now memories in Season 2. He draws these incredibly detailed maps of the tunnels spreading beneath Hawkins, showing the exact layout of the Upside Down's root system. But he's never been down in those tunnels. He's never consciously explored that underground network. So how does he know what it looks like? The show suggests it's because the Mind Flayer implanted those memories in his brain. But what if it's something else? What if Will had been trained to use psychic abilities when he was younger, just like 11 was, and the trauma of his possession is bringing those abilities back? There's a scene in Season 2, Episode 2, where Will is having one of his episodes. He's trapped in a vision of the Upside Down, frozen in terror as the shadow monster looms over him. Mike runs over and starts yelling at him, trying to snap him out of it. Will, come on. It's me, it's Mike. Wake up. And just like that, Will comes back to reality. He blinks, looks around, and recognizes where he is. This scene is almost identical to how 11's psychic episodes work. When she's in the void, observing someone from afar, she's not fully present in her body. People can talk to her, shake her, but she won't respond until she's ready to come back. And when she does come back, there's a specific way to ground her, a specific person whose voice can pull her out. For 11, that person is usually Mike. For Will, it's also Mike. Why does Mike have this effect on both of them? Is it just because he's a good friend? Or is it because Mike unconsciously understands something about psychic connections, something he learned from spending time with 11? When Mike talks to Will during his episodes, he's using the same techniques he learned from helping 11. He's creating a psychic anchor, a voice Will can follow back to reality. All of these details, the car in the parking lot, the fake body, the now memories, the way Mike grounds both Will and 11, they don't prove anything on their own. But taken together, they paint a picture of something deeply wrong. They suggest that Will's disappearance wasn't random, that he was connected to Hawkins' lab long before the Demogorgon took him, and that 11 might have been used as a tool in whatever Brenner was planning. So far, we've been building a theory based on circumstantial evidence, visual parallels, and fan speculation. But there's one scene in the series that comes closest to confirming that 11 and Will had a psychic encounter before his physical disappearance. It happens in Season 1, Episode 7, titled The Bathtub. This is the episode where the kids build a makeshift sensory deprivation tank so 11 can search for Will and Barb in the Upside Down. They fill a kiddie pool with salt water, set it up in the school gymnasium, and 11 floats in it while everyone watches anxiously. Joyce Byers is there, and she speaks to 11 before she goes under, thanking her for her bravery and promising to be there for her. This is significant because it's the first time an adult has shown 11 genuine kindness without wanting something in return. Brenner was affectionate with 11, but it was always manipulative, always conditional on her following orders. Hopper tried to help her, but he was gruff and suspicious. Joyce is different. She looks at 11 with pure maternal compassion, as if she already sees her as part of the family. And 11 responds to this. She nods, takes a deep breath, and lets herself sink into the water. We transition into the void. The screen goes black, and 11 is walking through that infinite darkness, water rippling beneath her bare feet. She's searching for Barb first, and what she finds is heartbreaking. Barb's corpse, pale and lifeless, a tendril from the upside down extending down her throat. 11 screams, "Gone, gone," and starts to panic. Joyce comforts her, tells her it's okay, tells her to try finding Will instead. 11 takes a breath and searches again, and this time she finds him. Will is huddled in a fort, Castle Byers, the upside-down version. He's weak, barely conscious, trembling. 11 approaches him slowly, and when she speaks, her voice echoes through both dimensions. Will, your mom is coming for you. Hold on a little longer." And here's the crucial detail. Will responds to her. He looks up, and he sees her. Not physically, because 11 isn't really there. She's projecting herself psychically into the upside down. But Will perceives her presence. He hears her voice. And more than that, he seems to recognize her. There's a moment where their eyes meet, and something passes between them. Not confusion, not surprise, but familiarity. This is the only time in the entire first season where 11 and Will directly interact, and the show treats it as if it's the first time they're meeting. But what if it's not? What if they've encountered each other in the void before, back when Brenner was running his experiments? What if Will has vague, dreamlike memories of a girl with a shaved head appearing in the darkness, reaching out to him, trying to communicate? Children who experience trauma often suppress their memories. If Will had been subjected to experiments at Hawkins' lab when he was very young, he might not consciously remember it, but the memories would still be there, buried in his subconscious. And when 11 reaches out to him in the void, it might be triggering those old memories. That's why he seems to recognize her. That's why he doesn't question how she's communicating with him across dimensions. Because on some level, this has happened before. There's a follow-up to this scene that often gets overlooked. After 11 makes contact with Will, she starts to lose the connection. Will's image flickers and fades, and 11 can't hold on to him. She comes out of the void gasping and upset, telling Joyce he's hiding from the monster. But then she says something else, something that doesn't quite make sense in context. She says it wants to kill him. The use of "it" is interesting. Not the monster wants to kill him, not something in the upside down wants to kill him, just it, as if there's a specific entity she's referring to, something she can sense but can't name. Remember, at this point in the story, no one knows about the Mind Flayer. No one knows about Vecna. 11 is picking up on a malevolent intelligence targeting Will, but she doesn't have words to describe it. What if that malevolent intelligence has been targeting Will all along? What if that's why he was taken, not to be killed, but to be used? And what if 11 sensed this during her experiments in the lab before the gate ever opened? It would explain why she's so determined to save him. It would explain the guilt in her eyes when she looks at his photograph, because somewhere in her fragmented memories, she knows. She knows that her psychic touch, her inadvertent contact with Will during one of Brenner's experiments, marked him as a target. And now she has to fix what she broke. With season 5 on the horizon, the Duffer Brothers have been dropping hints about what we can expect, and a lot of those hints revolve around Will and Eleven's connection. In interviews, the Duffers have repeatedly emphasized that season 5 will return to the show's roots, answering questions posed in season 1. Matt Duffer specifically stated, "The two biggest questions that we didn't really answer in season 1 that we do answer this season is what is the Upside Down truly, and why was Will taken?" That second question is crucial. Why was Will taken? Not how, not by whom, but why? What made Will special? What singled him out for this fate? The Duffers have also confirmed that Will be central to the final season. Ross Duffer said, "Will really takes center stage again in season 5. So much of the season was built around the idea of coming full circle, answering many of the questions that were posed all the way back in season 1. If the season is coming full circle, that means we're going back to the beginning, back to the night Will disappeared, back to the moment everything changed. And crucially, the Duffers have revealed that they've known the answers to these mysteries since season 1. Matt Duffer said, "We reveal really everything about the Upside Down, all of which was planned out in season 1. It was fun to finally pull back the curtain on all of that." This is significant because it means the clues have been there all along. The recognition scene, the void, the parallel journeys, all of it was intentional. The Duffers weren't making this up as they went. They planted seeds in season 1 that are finally bearing fruit in season 5. Noah Schnapp, who plays Will, has also been dropping hints. He said that season 5 will finally show what happened to Will during that week in the Upside Down, something we've never fully seen. He's described reading the scripts and being shocked by revelations about his character. "I was like, oh my God, I finally know what happened," he said. But it's helpful, honestly, to play and perform. Whatever he learned changed his understanding of Will's entire arc. Millie Bobby Brown has been more tight-lipped about Eleven's role in season 5, but she's confirmed that Eleven's story comes to a satisfying conclusion. She's also hinted that Eleven will have to confront painful truths about her past and about the consequences of her actions. Eleven's journey has always been about accepting who she is, Brown said in one interview. But in season 5, she also has to accept what she's done. What has she done? What painful truths will she have to confront? Could those truths involve Will? Could they involve realizing that her connection to him is older and more complicated than she thought? The trailer for season 5 gives us one more crucial piece of information. We see Will in the Upside Down, and we hear Vecna's voice speaking to him. "You are going to help me," Vecna says, "one last time. Not you're going to help me, not you're going to help me again, but one last time," implying that Will has helped Vecna before, multiple times perhaps. Maybe even from the very beginning. If Will has been helping Vecna, whether knowingly or unknowingly, it would explain so much. It would explain why Vecna spared him, why Vecna possessed him in season 2, why Will retained a connection to the Upside Down after being rescued. Will isn't just a victim. He's been a tool, a conduit, a way for Vecna to gather information about the world above. And if Eleven's psychic touch is what created that connection, what marked Will as someone Vecna could use, then the guilt she carries is even heavier than we imagined. So what does all of this mean for Season 5? If the theories are correct, if Eleven and Will do share this deep, mysterious connection that goes back to before the series began, how will that affect the final battle? The Duffer Brothers have said that Season 5 will be about coming full circle, bringing the story back to its origins. The series began with Will's disappearance and Eleven's escape. It seems fitting that it will end with the two of them finally confronting the truth about their connection and using it to save Hawkins. We know from the trailer and promotional materials that Will be central to the final season. Vecna has a special interest in him, and that interest is clearly connected to whatever happened during Will's original disappearance. If our theory is correct, if Eleven's psychic touch did mark Will as someone Vecna could use, then breaking that connection might be the key to defeating Vecna permanently. Imagine this scenario. Eleven and Will finally have a real conversation about what happened. They compare their memories, their experiences, their nightmares, and they realize that they've been connected all along, that Eleven's attempts to reach out to Will in the void before the gate opened created a bond that Vecna has been exploiting. The guilt Eleven feels is almost unbearable. She didn't mean to betray Will. She was just a child following Brenner's orders. But the consequences of her actions have haunted Will for years. But here's the thing about guilt. It can be transformative. Once Eleven acknowledges what happened, once she stops running from the truth, she can start to fix it. And with Will's help, with both of them working together, they might be able to turn their connection from a weakness into a strength. What if the psychic bond between Eleven and Will is the key to understanding the Upside Down? What if their combined abilities allow them to perceive the true nature of that dimension in a way no one else can? Eleven can enter the void, Will can sense the Mind Flayer's presence. Together, they might be able to map the entire structure of the Upside Down, find its weaknesses, discover how to close the gates permanently. Or here's an even more radical possibility. What if Eleven and Will can reshape the Upside Down itself? Vecna claimed he shaped that dimension, imposing his will on the chaos he found there. But Vecna is just one person with psychic powers. What could two people with powers do, working in perfect synchronization? Could they unmake what Vecna made? Could they transform the Upside Down from a nightmare realm into something neutral, something that no longer threatens our world? The season's opening sequence, which shows Will trapped in the Upside Down during his original disappearance, will likely be crucial to understanding all of this. The Duffers have described that sequence as having the craziest cold open we've ever done. We're going to see what actually happened to Will during that week he was missing, and those revelations will inform everything that happens in the season's climax. Noah Schnapp has said that Will's portrayal in that opening sequence surprised him. Everyone thought he was very weak, and I thought he was hiding the whole time. I didn't know he was running and climbing a tree and shooting. Will isn't just a victim. He fought back. He survived through courage and resourcefulness, and if he could do that as a frightened 12-year-old with no training, imagine what he could do now as a young man who understands his connection to the upside down and has 11 standing beside him. So, did 11 betray Will? In the end, the answer isn't simple. If our theory is correct, if 11's psychic contact with Will before the series began did mark him as a target, then yes, in a technical sense, her actions led to his suffering. But calling it a betrayal implies intent, implies choice. And 11 was a child. She was being controlled and manipulated by Brenner. She didn't understand what she was doing or what the consequences would be. The real betrayal was Brenner's. He's the one who forced 11 into those experiments. He's the one who used her as a tool without caring about her well-being or the well-being of the people she touched in the void. If he targeted Will specifically, if he knew Will had some special quality that made him useful for his research, then Brenner is the one who betrayed both of them. But here's what's beautiful about Stranger Things as a story. It's not about assigning blame or tallying up who wronged whom. It's about damaged people trying to heal and protect each other despite their trauma. 11 and Will are both victims of the same system, the same government program, the same evil. And rather than let that victimhood define them, they've chosen to fight back. They've chosen to be heroes. If Season 5 forces them to confront the painful truth about their connection, it will also give them the opportunity to reforge that connection into something positive. They can't change the past. They can't undo what was done to them, but they can choose what to do with that history. They can choose to stand together, to combine their strengths, to transform their shared trauma into shared purpose. And isn't that what the show has always been about? These kids, these damaged, traumatized, wonderful kids, refusing to let evil win, refusing to let their scars define them, finding family in each other, and using that love to push back against the darkness. 11 didn't betray Will, not really. She reached out to him in the only way she knew how, through the void, and that touch created a connection that neither of them understood. That connection brought them both incredible pain, but it also brought them together. And in the end, that connection might be what saves them all. So what is the secret scene that changes everything? It's not a single moment. It's a pattern of moments scattered throughout the series that take on new meaning when viewed through this lens. It's 11 recognizing Will's photograph. It's their meeting in the void when she tells him to hold on. It's Will's unexplained survival. It's their parallel journeys through darkness and back to light. It's the identical stuffed tigers and the matching traumas and the way Mike can ground both of them with his voice. It's all of these moments combined, forming a narrative that's been hiding in plain sight for 8 years. A story about two children caught in a web of government experimentation and supernatural horror, connected by a psychic bond they didn't choose and don't fully understand. A story about guilt and redemption, about the weight of responsibility and the power of forgiveness. If you go back and watch Season 1, knowing what we know now, you'll see these moments differently. You'll see 11's recognition not as a simple moment of identification, but as a complex mixture of memory and guilt and determination. You'll see Will's survival not as luck, but as evidence of something deeper. You'll see their parallel journeys not as narrative coincidence, but as thematic necessity. The Duffer Brothers are master storytellers, and they've been playing a long game with these characters. Every detail matters, every visual parallel has meaning, and when Season 5 finally reveals the truth about why Will was taken and what connects him to 11, all of those seeds they planted in Season 1 will bloom into something beautiful and terrible and heartbreaking. Because that's what Stranger Things does best. It takes the horror of childhood trauma, the terror of being powerless and alone, and transforms it into a story about found family and unexpected heroism. It shows us that the worst things that happen to us don't have to define us, that we can take our scars and our fears and our guilt and we can transmute them into strength. 11 and Will are stronger because of what they've been through, not in spite of it, but because of it. And when they finally stand together in Season 5, when they combine their abilities and face down Vecna and the Upside Down with everything they've got, it will be the culmination of a journey that began in darkness but ends in light. My dear friends, we've covered a lot of ground tonight. We've examined evidence and explored theories and tried to piece together a puzzle that the show has been building for nearly a decade. And through it all, one truth remains constant. Whatever happened between 11 and Will in those early days, whatever connection they share, it's not a betrayal, it's a bond. Bonds can be painful, they can be confusing, they can connect us to people in ways we don't understand and don't always want. But they're also what make us human. They're how we find each other in the darkness. They're how we survive. When 11 reached out to Will in the void, whether it was before his disappearance or during it, she wasn't betraying him. She was trying to help. She was doing the only thing she knew how to do, which was reach out, make contact, let someone know they're not alone. And maybe that touch did have consequences. Maybe it did mark Will in ways that made him vulnerable to Vecna. But it also saved him. It's why he survived when others didn't. It's why he's still fighting. And in Season 5, when all the secrets are finally revealed and all the questions finally answered, I believe we'll see that connection fully realized. We'll see 11 and Will standing side by side, two halves of a whole, using their bond to change the very nature of the Upside Down. Because that's what love does. It transforms, it redeems, it makes us stronger than we could ever be alone. So as you drift off to sleep tonight, thinking about Hawkins and the Upside Down and all the mysteries still waiting to be solved, remember this. The scene that changes everything isn't about betrayal. It's about connection. It's about two children finding each other in the darkness and refusing to let go. And when Season 5 airs, when we finally learn the truth about why Will was taken and what he and 11 share, I think it's going to be one of the most powerful revelations in the entire series, because it will show us that even the worst traumas, even the deepest wounds, can become sources of strength when we face them together. That's the real magic of Stranger Things, not the psychic powers or the alternate dimensions or the monsters, but the way broken people find each other and become family, the way children refuse to give up hope even when every adult told them it was hopeless, the way love, real love, the messy, complicated, painful kind, is the only force strong enough to stand against evil. Sleep well, my friends. Dream of Hawkins. Dream of friendship and courage and the light at the end of the tunnel. And know that when darkness falls, there's always someone reaching out through the void, telling you to hold on a little longer. Help is coming. Until next time, stay safe, stay curious, and remember that even in the upside down, you're never truly alone. Before you go, if you enjoyed tonight's deep dive into the mysteries of Stranger Things, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps me create more content like this, exploring the hidden depths of our favorite shows and uncovering the secrets that make them special. And if you have theories of your own about Eleven and Will's connection, drop them in the comments below. I read every single one, and I love hearing your thoughts. Together, we're building a community of truth seekers and mystery solvers. So until next time, sweet dreams, dear adventurers. And remember, friends don't lie.